Hi, I'm Jan,
And I'm Debbie.
and today we had someone that kind of requested things to do if you're a snowbird, or we call them seasonal also.
Yes, and we weren't sure what type of snowbird she was referring to, so we've kind of got two different things to think of. One is what we would call a resident snowbird or a seasonal person, which basically somebody that owns their home here and lives for whatever, 5, 6 months, whatever, and then goes back north to maybe a second home up north. And so one of the things that you would want to think about as far as doing that would be to down here make sure that all of your paper and mail and all of that is stopped. You want to stop the newspaper, you'll want to forward your mail, and you can actually do that pretty easily online with the post office. That's usually how we
you have an account,
stop it
and
or
then
move it.
that's how we do it. And also the paper, if you take the Daily Sun, you can email them circulation.dailysun@thevillagesmedia.com, and that's how I do it. I just tell them, I'm going to be gone from here to here, and they'll acknowledge that they got the request, and then they stop it the day you want, and when we come back, we have a paper in the driveway that morning. So.
And one of the things I like too with them is they're actually very reliable, but I don't even give them a return date because I always feel like maybe we'll change our mind or whatever. So they're real good about, if I call them the day before and say I need the paper tomorrow, they're good about pretty much immediately turning it back on.
Yeah.
So it's nice. So.
Also, if you're gone, especially in the summer, it's nice to have someone check your house, check for bugs, check for leaks. We had a woman that kind of came with our first house. She watched it for the people that had the house because they were seasonal also, and she would come once a week. She had a little log that she would ask. We'd get her a notebook, and then she would check off things, and usually she'd flush the toilets, run the faucets, and also she had me put a little bleach in the toilet and put saran wrap on top of it, and then close the lid, and then it's not evaporating, and so that seemed to work out well. And it's just nice to know that someone, and usually your neighbors kind of look out for you, but they don't go inside unless you obviously request it. But
yeah, and we've got some friends that we do have them go inside the house because my concern is for that. And one interesting thing, so there are bugs here that are called palmetto bugs. And that sounds so pretty cute and harmless. They're giant cockroaches. And they're nasty, and they like to go in through plumbing. And so we were talking to our bug guy one day, and we said, when we leave, we're concerned that because if there's nobody watching them, then
they kind of know when you're gone.
I think they do. They're creepy things. But he had said, speaking of the bleach, he had said take like a cap full of bleach, pour it down each of your sink drains, and then plug the drain. And he said that will kill any of them that are in there. He said, really, with those palmetto bugs, he said they are very hard to stop because they do come through plumbing. And so they can't obviously go through and spray all your pipes and all of that stuff. So that was his suggestion. So we always make sure we do that. And something also that I will tell you that goes along with having someone check your house, it is a good idea to have one of your neighbors have your keys. Our next door neighbors had gone on a cruise, so they were gone out of reach, out of touch. And I didn't have their key, and their sprinklers went off, and for some reason they never went off. So they were going for I left for tennis, and they were on. I didn't think much of it. Yeah. I came home, and they were still on, and that was 2.5 hours later. And they had a water fountain in their front. One of the sprinkler heads must have blown off, and so then they had this big giant, and I was like, now what do I do? Because I did know they were on a cruise. And then I said something to one of the other neighbors, and we found out that one neighbor did have a key. She didn't understand how to turn their sprinklers off, so I took the key and went in and turned them off. But, I mean, something like that, who would think, right? Yeah. But it is a good idea to have somebody that's close to you keeping an eye out, even if you're paying a home watch or whatever, because...
Yeah, and the Villages does that also.
Yeah.
They have a home watch. And then I think in the paper you can get people that kind of do it for hobby. Or,
and there's
a little extra money.
Yeah, a little extra money. And there is one of our viewers actually said that they use Empty Nest, And I believe that is the village's home watch service now. But he seemed pretty happy with them because they did say they were transitioning down further retirement, so they weren't quite ready to move down here full time. And so they were using empty nests. So just some things to think about when you're not around, because stuff happens.
Well, yeah, and a lot of this is mowers sometimes hit those sprinkler heads, because that happened to us one time. And Jack over here, I think he contacted the villages, like, I don't know how to get a hold of these people, because we were seasonal for a while. And we had the same thing, the spout just going, and they got a hold of us, and then we were able to get some friends of ours to come and fix it. But yeah, you kind of need to leave your number with, I mean, if you're not real familiar with your neighbors, or garage door code, a couple of our, and sometimes we get packages when we're gone, and I don't know how that happens. It's almost like they rush those packages out knowing that I'm going to be here. So our neighbors sometimes have to put our packages in, but that's what neighbors are for.
Yeah. And yeah, everybody's usually very helpful. So the next one will be hurricane prep. So if you're going to be leaving for the season over the summer, you want to make sure your umbrellas are down, like actually down, not just closed in, but down. Anything that could be a projectile. If you're not going to be back, hurricane season starts at the beginning of June and lasts till the end of November. So if you're going to be gone anytime during that part of the season, you want to make sure that plants are down on the ground, not up on, pedestals, decorative things like that. Most people here don't have hurricane shutters because really it just doesn't hit that, but anything that you find that might be a projectile or might get damaged during a hurricane, it's good to just bring them up into the house or up near the house and low.
Yeah, we do that. We move our furniture away from the big screens just in case, and then we tie our chairs up out back. Even the big wind the other day blew one of our chairs over, and that's not even hurricane wind, but it was pretty strong. But yeah, that's a good idea. Another one is clear out the fridge. I always felt like we wasted a lot of food going back and forth between two houses, which we probably did. The nice thing is the villages picks up your garbage twice a week. Yes. So we always kind of tried to plan to be able to put anything we wanted in the garbage, or put stuff in the freezer, or take with us in a non-perishable, or eat out that last week, so you're not accumulating groceries. But yeah, and another thing is, for that, if the electricity goes out in your area, which we get a notification, and so do you, then you're like, oh, how long is it going to be? So.
Which, when we start thinking about going away for any length of time, I start the month before. I will buy my groceries. I hate going to the grocery store, so I usually buy, we go to Sam's and we buy meat for the month and split it and freeze it and everything. But when we start getting close to a trip or something like that, I start planning a month ahead, and I don't go to the grocery store much, and I just try to and I go through my cabinet and I'm like, what can I make out of this? What can I make out of that? Yeah. Try and get rid of as much as possible. And usually some of the neighbors, depending on, what you're giving away, some of the neighbors will take stuff. I mean, we've had people that I've had unopened butter or whatever, and I'm like, look, this is going to be gone. Do you want it? And they'll take it. So, and a little hint that I had gotten, I can't remember where I heard this, but I think it's a great idea, is take a little cup, like a little mouthwash cup that you get, the little paper Dixie cups, whatever they're called, little Dixie cup, fill it up with water, put it in your freezer. Once it's frozen, put a penny on top. If you lose power and things are starting to melt, the penny will sink, and when you get home, that penny will not be on top of the water anymore. It'll be down in there. So then you will know that any food you have in there is probably spoiled.
Compromised, yeah.
So I thought that was a good little trick that somebody had. I don't remember where I heard it. Sure, it was not my original idea, but I thought that was very clever. To think about. So smells. So actually, it was funny. We had a question that someone had asked: do your homes get musty? And overall, I would say no when we're home, when we've got windows open, we're doing laundry, we're taking showers. There's our own smells, cooking, things like that. There's our own smells in there. But I will say, when we come home after being away for a while, it can smell. I mean, I'm talking even a week or two.
Up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, I have found some really cheap deodorizers. So if anybody wants the name of them, I got them on Amazon. I can find the name of them. But I find that works. And then I found a kind of expensive one that was an oil that we found on a trip actually down in, I think we were in Cape Coral or something, and I found this stuff. It's called a Bulgaria or something. Anyway, it's a oil. And so the oil just sits, you've probably seen it in our house, it's up by the front door, and it just sits in the house. And I had asked them, it's expensive. And I said, well, how long is it going to last? And she said, oh, probably like, depends on how much like air is flowing, but probably 6 months. And it's lasted longer than that. So, but it makes a huge difference. So when we've been gone, even for a week or two, it doesn't smell so musty when we get home. Because I do hate that smell. I'm like, oh, it's so embarrassing. My house smells.
Right, and I think that's any house that's shut up and you're not in there.
That could be.
But our air conditioner has a humidifier attached to it, and when we leave, we put it to a certain degrees, and then we turn the humidifier to a certain degrees. It's it's
Is it humidifier or dehumidifier?
Dehumidifier, sorry,
okay.
Dehumidifier, and it's the instructions that came with the new furnace and air conditioner, and that seems to work pretty well. But it just smells shut up. I mean, that's a beast.
I don't like it.
Golf cart maintenance. We have a park car that's electric, and it needs to be driven. It can't sit. It's hard on it to be plugged in all the time. We got a trickler charge, but there's something about the park cars. They have these bristles. If it sits too long, they get stiff. So we have a neighbor that about every other week takes it for a spin and comes back. Now we have lithium batteries, so I don't know if that's any different, but they still have the brushes in there in the motor. So we'll still have a neighbor, take it for a ride. The gas ones, I don't know. Some people pour a little.
You can pour that stable in there, but honestly, we don't do that either. And we have left it for a couple. We have 2 golf carts, and we've left them for a couple months and come back. And Leo's always worried they're not going to start. They're going to be dead.
Yeah.
And they start right up like a dream. I will say, I have a cousin though. He has newer golf carts than us. They've got it's like a 2017 or something like that, and he for some reason is having trouble with the battery. It's not. So he found some sort of switch now. Don't ask me. I'm not technical. Found some sort of switch. If you need to know what it is, I'll ask him. But he found some way to disconnect something so that that battery's not losing. Because you wouldn't think you'd need a trickle charge on a gas golf cart. Maybe that is the answer. So I don't know. I don't know enough about him. But what we're kind of saying is making sure have somebody driving them or whatever, so you don't have a big mess when you come home.
Well, and the one thing you will notice, it's sitting there that long, the tire tends to not be round. So when you take your first ride, it's like boom, 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 boom. I mean, there's a distinct, until it rounds out again, there's a distinct, like, what's wrong with my cart? So be prepared for that.
And then the next kind of Snowbird and so like I said, we weren't sure which one she was referring to. So the other kind of snowbird we would say is somebody that does not live here, does not have a home here, but comes down, and there are a lot of people that are repeat offenders and come down like every February or January, February or whatever, and they just love it here, but they're either not able to or not ready to or whatever, or don't want to.
Or they don't want to own 2 houses.
Or even move down here full time. So they maybe love their life up there, but this is a nice place to come for winter vacations. So those type of snowbirds, I'm just going to call them temporary. What I would think about with that is to try, if it was me, I would want to try a different area each time, just to kind of get a feel for it. If I was thinking about, ever living here or whatever, I would want to be trying, there's plenty of area from Route 42 all the way down to Disney. So I would want to try different areas if it was me, just to kind of get an idea of what I liked, what the amenities were, what the feel was, because there are different vibes. The landscaping, I've got a cousin that lives in Pine Ridge, and it's funny because his wife always said, I like your area because you guys have such mature trees up there. And we're not that far north of them, but there are more mature trees and a lot more oak trees and stuff down there. It was probably swamp, and so it's pine trees, but a lot of people like that, or palm trees. I mean, they like the palm trees. They're in Florida. They love the palm trees. So depending on what you like, you might find that you gravitate toward one or the other.
And if you are going to hop around, I mean, like some people, they lock into the same house every year because they know that they just re-up. So if you're, like you said, if you're not going to ever move here or have a house, then that's the thing to do is just, we had renters on our villa that they came every year. And it worked out really good because we just knew we didn't have to advertise or break in somebody new.
Yeah.
Or
It kind of works for both of you. And actually, we did this when our house was rented too. We had the same, and we had, I think it was March and October, I can't remember, but these same people came for 2 months, and every year they'd say, just keep our deposit, we'll be back next year. And it was nice for them. They always knew they had that place, because sometimes during the prime season, like if you're lucky enough, this sounds terrible, but if you're lucky enough to get a house during the prime time, you know, it's if you've liked it, maybe keep that house and keep just redepositing it, because you may not be able to find one the next year, or not the same amenities or location or whatever. And I will say, our tenants all became friends. Like when we moved in, it was almost like our neighbors were a bit offended that we wrecked their friendships with their people. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, but it's our house now.
Right, yeah.
And so anyway, it was interesting. So a lot of times, though, they do find that they get involved with the neighbors and the neighborhoods and the neighborhood groups, and so they want to keep renting in the same place. So something to think about.
Let's see, where to find a rental. I mean, the villages rent some.
You can go on Talk of the Villages. There's a lot of them on Talk of the Villages. You can go into the classified ads, like on the Daily Sun. A lot of people do that. There are some private management companies here too, that
you just
rent out
Google it,
properties.
and then something in the villages, and a whole bunch of properties management will come up. So, but again, January, February, March is hard to find if you haven't been locked in. But with building new houses down there, I mean, there might be openings.
There will be, and I would say there's probably, if I were to guess, there will probably be more open down there, because I do think some people are buying their homes down there, looking forward to living their dream, but not quite able to retire or whatever yet. It's not, it's like the plan is to retire there. We want to use it a couple months out of the year, or a month or whatever, or we really like this area, and so we're going to buy now and rent it until. And so I think that I think that the newer area probably has more rentals.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. That's just a planning for retirement thing, you know. And so I would kind of guess that they might find more down south. You have a doggy that's
Spencer.
Hi, Spencer. Anyway, but that's a good place to try and find a rental. We would also suggest, like Jan said, if you're looking at Snowbird season, which is pretty much, normally was January through April. Now it's kind of extending into November and December, so just shop early.
Yeah.
Shop early. How to get into clubs and groups, and other recommendations. Start early. So if you're going to come down here, for example, I know I tell you, I'm a tennis player. So if I knew I was going to come down here and play tennis, I would reach out to the tennis club and say, look, I'm this level player, and I'm going to be here January through March or whatever, and I'm looking to play in some groups. Because what ends up happening in tennis, and in some of the groups that will be limited in number, you'll find this, where you have to be on a waiting list, and basically you sub in. So if somebody calls in sick, then they call you and they say, can you play? And your first answer should be yes, if you want to get involved. Because it does help you get in. And then once you're in, this sounds kind of snobby, but it does happen in tennis. I'm just saying, once you're in and they like you and they see that you can play, then they're like, oh, let's call that Jan lady and see if she's available. And that's kind of how you get in with the different people.
Yeah, and the same with any clubs. You're going to get online again. There's clubs for everything, and it does get busy, and the exercise classes get very busy. So you just kind of have to go early if you want a spot, or
And it's hard, and sometimes you're because actually I know some of the Pilates classes and things like that tend to fill up in the wintertime. And one of my friends, she takes one over at Laurel Manor, and she says the woman that instructs it is wonderful. But because of that, and probably because there's a lot of people here, it gets full. So she actually has to go and set like a concert. And they set like a half hour to an hour ahead of time. They set their little mats out there in line. Water volleyball, very popular.
Yeah.
Same thing happens. People put their beach towels down. As soon as tickets are available, they put their beach towels down in line because it is so popular. So the sad thing is you may not get to do all the activities that you want to do because it is busy here. So you may have to also be reasonable with your expectations. That even goes for full-time residents. I mean, we get no more privilege than you guys do.
No,
so
not at all.
we're all on the same playing field.
Yep, exactly. Let's see, rent a golf cart. Some renters will, or rentees, they have a golf cart with the property. And some don't want the liability, or their insurance company doesn't like it. And so look ahead of time, especially in the busy time, and get your golf cart either through the villages, or there's a ton of companies here and little companies that rent golf carts. I mean, especially in January, you see all these trucks going through with like 4 or 5 golf carts. You know, they're delivering a golf cart to somebody that just got here or a renter. And so, yeah, and you can kind of get a double 4-seater or 2-seater or whatever you want. But yeah, you need to, if you're new, get it early.
Yeah. And the villages, they do rent them, but it is funny because even so, when you're getting your work done on your car, they offer a free loaner. So they have to really watch. They do reserve a certain number for their customers that are. So it really can get tight, and around the holidays too. So if you're somebody that's going to come down and visit during Christmas or Thanksgiving or something, or spring break, one of the popular times you'll want to do that early. So when you come and you are a temporary renter, what you want to think about too is everybody's coming in at the same time. Most leases run month to month, so most leases will start on January 1st and on the 30th. So on January 1st, you and everybody else is getting here, and you and everybody else need groceries. Etc. And not only that, from what I understand, I'm not there yet, but the Social Security checks come out on the 1st of the month, and so people say that a lot of people go to the grocery store anyway because that's their pay date. And so I don't know how true or not that is, but people have said that. But anyway, shopping for groceries on the 1st or 2nd is difficult for all of us. So we actually avoid the store, or we go at the butt crack of dawn so nobody else is up yet.
Right before closing.
Yes, or in the evenings, yep. Yeah. And so just have that in mind when you're coming, and if you do need to shop, pack your patience, because everybody else is in there with their carts and doing and stopping in the middle, because nobody's familiar with the grocery store because it's new to them, and so they're looking, and so anyway, just think about that.
Yeah, definitely. When Mark says we need to go to the store, and I look at my watch and go, nope, we'll go tomorrow, because it's just not worth it. Also, you'll want to bring some necessities. You're going to obviously bring your own clothes, your makeup and all that stuff, and things that you like to have at home. You're going to want to bring that too. It kind of depends on what you're renting and how they have it. How many things they have for you, your alarm clock and all this, and I don't know. Like we take our own home pod with us, and
that's what I was thinking. Like the speakers
your own
and
music,
stuff like that.
It's what you feel like at home, bringing here to make it seem more like
your home.
Yeah,
because it will be your home for a month or 2 months or however long you're here, and so something to make you comfortable, whatever that is.
And a lot of renters, when they come here, they're hardly in the house because they're coming here to
play
and be outside, because they know that their friends back north or east or west are in the cold. So our renters were hardly ever in the house.
Yeah, I think that
always
is
on the
true.
go. Yeah,
I think that is true. And then when you're leaving, watch your timing. So the last day of the month also is going to be busy driving out of here. There are very few roads that go out of Florida, 75, 95, and you've got 10 if you can stay on there long enough. And I'll just give you an example. My brother came down for spring break. His daughter had spring break this year, and it was the last week of March. And March 31st, I think it was a Friday. And they decided they were going to go, and they usually do a straight shot. And I'm like, that's just brutal. Why don't you just take another night and spend the night somewhere? He asked if I ever had problems. We never have problems. And so he left Florida on the 31st. Unfortunately, they didn't leave particularly early. They left about 8:30, somewhere around there. And he said they made it just past Gainesville. And after that, they were bumper to bumper. And they ended up where they couldn't get a hotel. And it didn't even occur to me, because the other thing is, like we said, a lot of people will come down for a group of months. So a lot of people will come January 1st through March 31st. That's a nice pocket of time. Yeah. And so all those people, and remember, not just the villages, everybody that's south of the villages, so everybody from Miami on up, are all trying to exit the state at the same time. And I never really thought about that until the day before they were leaving. And I was like, hey, wait a minute, you might want to think about this. Anyway, they couldn't even get a hotel that they said that they would stay at. And they said that it was just terrible, and they ended up having to drive straight through. It took them 23 hours to do what usually takes us 20 hours with stops and everything. They had so much congestion. So just think about your timing. We all want to be here as long as possible. I get that. But if it was me, I might leave a couple days early to avoid that. I don't love
our renters did that.
traffic.
They experienced the leaving
Exodus.
on the, so then they kind of came mid-month and left mid-month. So they weren't really the first of the 30. They were kind of, they were 5 months, but they wanted that leeway so they didn't run into that again. Because they went all the way up to Maine, and 95 is a nightmare.
Yeah.
So.
But hopefully that helps. Those were some of our ideas about how to be a snowbird. We weren't sure exactly what information you were looking for there, so but those are some of the things that we think about for longer term snowbirds and shorter term.
And seasonal, I mean, because we were seasonal for a while, and so.
Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, we hope you watch another one, and
like and subscribe.
as always, thank you.